I'll be honest, this is only the second time I've told this story to anyone. I used to live out in southeast Colorado. I was attending Fort Lewis College in Durango. Beautiful area, right between the mountains and desert, and is very close to the San Juan National Forest. At the time this happened, I was living in an apartment building very close to the school. FLC sits on a mesa above the actual town of Durango, and my apartment was also on this mesa. Right behind my complex was a ridgeline called Raiders Ridge. I was a very avid mountain biker, and every morning I would ride a trail system up and over Raiders Ridge. It was early morning. Behind the ridge is just forest and a series of smaller ridges for at least a few miles. The area is relatively well forested with small pines, scrub brush, and larger bushes. The sun hadn't yet gotten over the ridge, so it was somewhat light, but not brightly lit like from overhead sunlight. At the time, I was about a mile back into the ridge, and I was pedaling up to another of the smaller ridges. I was going pretty slow since it was a relatively steep grade. All of a sudden, I feel and hear something hit my helmet. A bit odd, but I figured it could have been something rolling down from the ridge, so I kept on. Then it happened again, except this time it hit my riding gloves. I stopped, not really thinking anything of it, and took a drink, but as soon as I stopped, it was super quiet. I got really weirded out, almost like when you know someone is staring at you from across the classroom. That's when I heard it. It sounded like the lowest, deepest growl ever, like a tiger on steroids. I looked in the direction of where it came from, completely frozen. I have never heard anything with the kind of power that this thing had. I noticed a very large black mass behind one of the larger bushes. It was sort of backlit, so I couldn't make out any discernible features, only that this thing was really big. It looked jet black, but with the lighting, I guess it could have been a dark brown. I'm not sure. I stared at it for what must have been just a few seconds. I started freaking out on the inside, but I still could not move. It must have only been maybe 30 feet from me. It let out another growl, and it stood up on 2 feet. I am not a big person, but this thing must have been 6.5 to 7 feet tall, lean yet muscular. At this point, my flight response kicked in, and I awkwardly shuffled my bike 180 degrees and started out down the hill like a bat out of hell. I never looked back, but I could hear it running after me. Big, heavy thuds, breaking brush and branches on the way. I'm not sure when it stopped following. I was so focused on getting away and not crashing that I couldn't say exactly when I stopped hearing it. I went down a different way that I came because if I didn't, I knew I would have had to ride back up Raiders Ridge, and that would mean slowing down. So I went southwest instead, which took me to a much more popular trail that led to a main road. I just thought to myself, I need to get to where there are other people and I'll be safe, which I did. I ran across a group of trail runners and nearly crashed into one of them. I got to the entrance of the trail by the road and I collapsed. I was exhausted, almost crying and hyperventilating. A woman stopped to ask if I was okay, and all I could get out was, "Yes, I'm okay now. I'm okay now." Needless to say, I rode all the way back home on surface streets. Not long after not long after that, things went downhill really fast for me. I dropped out of school and I fell heavily into addiction. I had to move back home to New York after that. It took me years to get better and to even think about getting back out into the woods. And even still, what happened is always on my mind when I'm out there. But I have learned to deal with it now. I still enjoy nature, and now I figure with all the time I've spent out in the forest, and this has only happened once, that my odds are fairly low of this repeating itself. But I always worry about people who actively go looking for these things. They can be extremely shy, or in my case, extremely aggressive, and you never know which it will be. My only caution is that people be careful out there. This encounter story was brought to you by a user on Reddit. If you have a story or an encounter that you would like to have read on Paranormal Odyssey, please send an email with that encounter to wayne@paranormalworldproductions.com or tiffany@paranormalworldproductions.com. I hope that you enjoyed this encounter, and stay tuned for